Hi guys, and welcome back. Today we've got a very special guest, something we've been trying to get done for ages, and we finally got Davey Deathray on the channel. Thank you so much, mate. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for having me, guys. We've been talking for a while, like you said, and it's great that we could, find the right time for everyone and a really cool topic that I'm pumped to
Yes.
talk about with you guys. I love what you guys do at your channel, so always looking to collaborate with people who I, admire and look up to, and your guys' channel is killing it. So thank you so much for having
Oh,
me.
thank you,
Thank
mate. We
you.
appreciate
Cheers,
that.
buddy. So what we're going to do hidden horror gems. We're going to go around the room and pick one each. So do you want to kick things off, Davey?
Yeah, let's just jump right into it. So, my first pick for a horror hidden gem is one that a lot of people will mention in passing. I've heard it shouted out in, I think Scream 4 was like the first time I heard it talked about in a film. But it is Peeping Tom from 1960. And this one
Okay.
is, it's like I said, people talk about it, people name drop it. I just don't see very many people like really covering it or diving into it and really talking about it beyond just, hey, this is one of the proto slashers. Like this is one that started the genre. And I think, we just have there's a bit of a recency bias as far as like, if you're born in the 80s or 90s, you grow up watching some stuff and you think it's great. You
Yeah.
probably think, well, the movies that inspired it, like that's great that they exist. I think it's awesome that they inspired the stuff that I love, but how good can they really be? Did they really like do anything interesting or did they just sort of like lay the foundation? And when I
Yeah.
watched Peeping Tom for the first time, I was like, not only does this film lay the foundation for your typical slasher film, but it goes pretty deep and did some things that I did not expect it to do. I just want to bring up some facts here. This one was written by Leo Marks, directed by Michael Powell, and it stars Karl-Heinz Bohm, Anna Massey, and Moira Shearer. And this is a
It's about
really
a stalker,
interesting.
is it?
Yeah, he's so the our main it's weird because our protagonist is also the antagonist. So this is one of those where you've got this sympathetic villain. Like you grow to learn so much about it's Mark Lewis is the name of the character. You grow to know so much about Mark that you feel like he almost like can't help himself because it's this crazy thing where his dad wanted to capture and document his upbringing as a kid through a camera. And he wanted to capture moments of fear, like heightened, intense emotional moments. And now Mark has grown up and he is a cinematographer and he is obsessed with finding the perfect shot, like lining up the perfect shot. And then he is also stalking and getting ready to kill his victim at that time. And he has this
As you
warped
do.
as you do, when you're at work, you just kind of you're like, oh, right, who am I going to kill today? It's just the way it goes. But he's got this. It's really interesting. He has this like warped, distorted mirror that's on his camera, and he uses the one of the legs of the tripod as the implement of destruction. And his whole thing is he wants the person to see the look of fear in their own face through the mirror. He wants to capture that moment. So it's this really like deep psychological kind of thing that you don't really see in a lot of slashers. So I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting. And then all of his backstory, it's just a character that like you feel bad. You want him to be saved, and ultimately you know that there's no saving him.
So was this a hit? I know it's a hidden gem, but is it just a forgotten gem, or did it actually make money?
It
Uh,
was one of those movies that was so shocking when it came out. It came out like a month before Psycho. And I think
right.
maybe because
Okay.
Hitchcock had a little bit more,
Yeah.
had
Pull.
that foundation in the industry, probably a little bit more support that for him to do something shocking was a bit more accepted. Whereas here with, with Peeping Tom, which was a British film, I believe. I think, it's got German actors, but I believe it was a British studio that put this one together.
Yeah.
It was lambasted by critics. I think a lot of people were just uncomfortable with the idea that, it blended lines of like sexuality and violence. And of course, having a sympathetic villain is probably something that folks didn't take too kindly with back then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this one sort of, had a very short run in the theater. It pretty much killed the career of the director. And, it wasn't until, the last few decades, Martin Scorsese is a huge fan of this one. So he kind of brought it back. I believe he purchased the rights so it could be re-released. And I think you can watch it. I just checked before, the recording of this vid here. It is available on Tubi. So if you can deal with some commercials, you can watch it for free.
Right. I actually have heard of the title, but I didn't know it was a slasher film. I thought it was just one of these like cheesy British, like we had these
art house movies, like.
yeah, or like we started these films, like Confessions of the Window Cleaner and stuff. And I thought it was one of those like bad sort of 60s movies. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does have.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one either.
Sorry, go ahead, Curtis.
Oh, I was just saying I haven't seen this one either, which I love when we can talk about films. If someone can recommend a film I haven't seen, it's always great.
Yeah, I gotta say, because Kurt, even though he was born, when were you born, Kurt? 90s or
93. 93.
His love of horror does go back very far. In all fairness, he's not just like a child of the 90s, and that's it. And
Yeah,
I'm surprised you haven't seen it, Kurt.
Yeah, I know. Well, it just goes to show how underrated it is if I haven't seen it,
Oh, yeah.
We all have those movies or those blind spots for whatever reason. Like there's tons of like modern movies that I'm missing out on that I know I have to catch up on. I'm a big like rewatcher. For the folks who don't know me or don't know my channel, I'm always talking about like I will rewatch a movie because I love the change in perspective that I get. I love like seeing something that maybe I missed, or maybe somebody like made a remark about a film, and the next time I watch it, I sort of think about that and see if that maybe not really like sways the way I feel, but just gives me something new to appreciate or something new to think about. So I look at film almost like literature in that way.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I was talking to somebody the other day, and he was talking about gangster movies, and I said, "Do you know, I've never seen The Godfather, but I've seen Legally Blonde about 7 times." There's something wrong.
Yeah. Well, and Peeping Tom, I do think there's just that aversion to like older movies. You're just like, oh, is it really going to keep my attention? Is it going to, and obviously, like, yeah, there's certain trappings of older films that you just. I guess the way that I think of it, and Dave McRae said this on his channel and put it pretty nicely, where it's like, you just have to kind of put yourself in that time when you watch an older movie. You can't watch a movie from 1960 and be like, well, I'm going to compare it to, Evil Dead Rise or whatever. It's like, it's just, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like you have to think about it within the context of its time, like what it meant for the movies that came after it. And, being so close to Psycho and everything, I think is pretty interesting. And with this one, it was one of those movies where I just thought I was checking off a box. I was like, well, I've heard about this one. I'll check this box off.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching it, I mean, even thinking about it and talking about it now, I'm getting goosebumps just because of like what it did for me. It's got this really awesome, like surreal, bright coloring at certain points. When you get that POV shot, it's split. There's like a crosshair kind of thing where it's split and you can see multiple parts of the frame. There's just this really, it just seemed like it was taking chances that a lot of movies just hadn't at that point.
That sounds awesome.
That sounds awesome.
What do you got, Kurt?
Right. Right. I will say, right, I almost did 2 older movies, and I thought, no, I'll split it. I'll do one old one and I'll do one new one, right? So the first one I've got, right, is 1988's Waxwork, directed by Anthony Hickox. This one stars Zach Gilligan from Gremlins, and you've also got David Warner.
And you've got Bruce Campbell.
Yes, well, in the sequel. He's in the sequel.
Oh, yes, the sequel, yes.
Yes. I think this one, right, is severely underrated. And we've got a basic premise for this movie. We've got a pop-up wax museum that just shows up out of nowhere. Now, it's not like a tent. It's a permanent building. And it catches the eyes of these teenagers that are walking past. So they start to snoop around a little bit, and they bump into David Warner, who I think he runs the building. He's the one that kind of entices them into it, and he invites them to this midnight showing. Obviously intrigued, they go to this midnight showing, and once inside, you've got all these great wax exhibits. Now, this one, as a kid, I loved because I loved my monsters, and you're going around this museum and you can see all these great exhibits, these great setups. You've got Wolfman, you've got Dracula, Jack the Ripper, some of these Universal classic monsters, and they've got these full setups. And what it is, once inside these exhibits, if you step into the exhibit, you kind of become a part of it. And once in there, you kind of take over this whole scene, and any sort of time that they're in, it takes over them, and they're kind of stuck in this wax museum then with whatever scene they've jumped into. Like one of them jumps into a wolf exhibit, and he's in this cabin, and it's got this great scene with this wolf and a hunter. And there's many other scenes as well that play out throughout the film. Like I said, there's plenty of exhibits, and it's just horror overload. And I think this one is severely underrated. I know it's a bit more well known than some of the picks have already been said, but I still think this is an overlooked movie. It's got a great story. It still looks good to this day, and it's just got great designs. And I just love the concept of this one. I go back to a lot, specifically when I was a kid. I absolutely loved this movie because it had all these different characters in there. Have you seen this one?
I've seen it, yeah. And the sequel, and the remake with Paris Hilton.
No, that's House of Wax.
House of Wax, yeah.
Oh, what?
Yes, Vincent Price one. Yes.
Right, yes, okay.
I have not seen Waxwork, but I remember as a kid going to the movie store, seeing like the VHS cover in the horror section.
Yes, I used such to walk, a cool cover.
Yeah, I was just fascinated by walking through that section as a kid. Like whether or not I could rent them, I was like, what's going to scare me? But I've never seen it, but this sounds fascinating. So do they actually get turned into wax characters, or do they find themselves like in a nightmarish scene that's like the room that they're in?
On the inside, when they go through it, they find themselves in the scene. So they go through it, and you look around, and they're in the full scene, and all the characters inside this waxwork are alive in this thing. But if someone walking past the waxwork, they'll see them stuck. So whatever scene they end up, say for instance, if they've died inside there, however they've died, whoever walks past the waxwork can then see them stuck in that one position. So it's like a portal, and it's something I haven't seen it in a while, but it's something to do with taking their souls. So it's like a pop-up waxwork. David Warner plays like the villain in the movie, and he gets people to come into his waxwork, and then they basically get swallowed by these wax statues, and then they become a part of the museum, if that makes sense. It's a cracking film, and no one ever talks about it. And too many times, right, I've asked someone, have you seen Waxwork? Never. No one's ever seen this movie. It's severely underrated.
I have seen it years ago, but I have seen the sequel. And I think it's called Lost in Time, the sequel, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just very straight. It's a time travel story. It's got nothing to do with waxworks. And they go back in time. And Bruce Campbell's there. And I always thought, because it came out before Army of Darkness, I thought, is this connected to Evil Dead? Because it's going to be set in the medieval. And you got Ash, but it was unrelated. No. Yeah. I thought it was. In my head, I thought House of Wax was the same thing. But I'm
no. It's an old, old Vincent Price film. Maybe 60s, 70s, early one.
Because House of Wax is more about just turning them into the figure, right? Converting them to a figure. Whereas this sounds a little bit more like there's some inspiration from something like A Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's like, we're going to capture you in this like supernatural world. And
definitely.
Like that kind of like blending that with an idea like House of Wax. It sounds really fascinating. I've never seen it, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely worth a watch.
I think I might check it out as well. Right. My one, it's not that old, 2008. And it's The Ruins. Now for some reason, this has a lot of hate on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviews are bad. And I've seen it 2 or 3 times now. I'm like, I just don't get where the hate comes from. It is directed by a guy called Carter Smith. Never heard of him. You got a great cast. You got Sean Ashmore, the guy from X-Men. And he's in another underrated gem, actually. Frozen, not the Elsa one. No, this is better. And you got Jonathan Tucker, who was the guy from Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, and he's in a brilliant show called Kingdom, an MMA show. Fantastic actor. And Jenna Malone, who's in Donnie Darko. He's got a great cast. Gist of the story is they're in Mexico, and they've got this sort of they are in Mexico, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, South America somewhere, and they go in the woods and looking for this rare Aztec sort of pyramid, and they get chased to it, and they're trapped on top. And there's all these people with guns; they won't let them down. But really, these people are trying to to stop this horrible like virus kind of thing and keep it there. And it's basically the vines are living and they're going under their skin, and it is one of the most horrible body horror movies you've seen. It's very clever. I don't want to give everything away because, you know, if someone's watching and seen it, because I think it's on Netflix, so you could get a chance to watch it. But basically, these vines are alive, and they kind of like sentient, and they're going under your skin and they burrow. And once you're infected, you have to sever your arm to get it off, and they go under in your bones. It is horrifying. There's some scenes in it where they're trying to cut out the vines. And there's a really, really cool scene, I won't spoil it, involving a phone. Now, those of you who've seen it know what I'm on about. Have you both seen it?
Yes, yeah.
Multiple times.
You know I'm talking about with a phone.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't like this film, then I reckon that maybe the phone scene was like seems stupid, but if you like it, you think, my God, that's really clever. It's a very clever scene. But yeah, it gets trashed online, and I don't know why. What's your opinion of it, Davey?
I think this film's great. Like, I think it's based on a novel, which I think is really cool too. Whenever you get a horror film based on a novel, because like, you know, horror literature just kind of fascinates me. And yeah, this one it gets really intense really quick. It starts out like, oh, we're partying by the pool. And then someone's like, hey, have you checked out this, like, there's this cool pyramid that like none of the white people from America have ever seen. And they're like, you know, and like, so it starts out like, yeah, fun loving, but man, the shit gets real really quick. Kind of, there are some elements there that I felt like they took in, there's a movie called Splinter that has a similar kind of vibe about just like this thing that you touch. And if you touch it just the tiniest bit, like good luck with the rest of your life. That's probably going to be really short. Great performances. The practical effects are amazing here. Amazing.
I suppose it's got a touch of Creep Show as well, the Stephen King segment.
Exactly.
But I just think it's so underrated, and especially when the girl thinks she's fine, and then they can just see it under the skin, and they're like, oh, and there's like no cutting that out because it's way up there. It's horrible, isn't it? I don't know where's all the hate come from for this? I don't know.
I think people just feel uncomfortable watching it. I mean, it's one of those movies that, like, if that ain't your thing, you're gonna feel sick watching it, right?
Yeah. And I love I'll probably do a video on this one day, but I love holiday movies where something goes wrong, when they're having a nice time on a beach, a bit like Hostel or
Paradise Lost.
Paradise Lost. There's loads of them, and I love them because you have this scene where they're all partying, like you said, by the pool, and because you know it's a horror, you feel uneasy, like in a shark film. You're thinking, oh, they're having too much fun. It's horrible.
Or even like Frozen that you had mentioned with Sean Ashmore. Really, like, you know, not necessarily a similar film, but like as far as like the, you know, like what the hell would you do in this situation? Like, I think that's the, you know, as an audience member, you're just like, how do you get out of this? And I get that feeling from both of those movies.
Yeah, I think Disney has ruined our Frozen horror film, isn't it?
maybe a little bit,
or it's put more eyes on that film than it should be.
How many people have typed in Frozen on Google and that's come up? Do you know what I mean?
Did they have to pay for the rights or something? Because what, Frozen was like 08, something like that, 09? I don't know. The Adam Green, because it's Adam Green,
was way
right?
Before,
I'm not really sure, but it's it's a great film. If anyone hasn't seen it, definitely check it out. Right then, Davey, back to you, buddy. What's your last pick?
So my last pick, I've got, I did the same kind of thing that Curtis did, where it was like pick an older one, pick a newer one, relatively newer. My second pick is We Are Still Here from 2015. Now, this one, I'm going to try to pronounce the director's name. It's Ted Gogan. Gahogan? I don't know. I don't know if it's an Irish last name, and I'm just doing a terrible job. But he wrote it.
Shit at names.
Iconically bad.
Yeah.
It's Geogheghan. How many G's can you have in your name? I guess 3 might be the limit.
Davey, is this the one with Barbara Crampton?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yes, this is a cracking film. Yes.
I thought, I put this movie on like a tablet, as like, downloaded it to watch like on a plane ride. So it was on Netflix whenever this was, probably a couple years after it came out. I just thought like, oh, I love Barbara Crampton and all those old H.P. Lovecraft films. Like, she's gorgeous, she's a fine actress, so let's check it out. And I'm sitting there on the plane, like, you get tunnel vision on a plane. If it's all dark and everything, and I'm watching this movie on a tablet and I'm like jumping and freaking out and like looking around, making
Screaming.
sure no one's judging me. Yeah. But this movie, it was just sort of like, I didn't expect it to be as impressive as it was. And I think one of the things I
Yes.
learned right around this time, like 2016, because it's right around the same time that I watched The Changeling from 1980 with George C. Scott, which almost made this list. It's my honorable mention, but I realized after watching We Are Still Here, I'm like, man, I kind of have a thing for slow burn haunted house movies where ghosts want to find justice. Another
Yeah.
one that stands out to me is there's another one that's right on the tip of my tongue that I can't think of. Oh, House of the Devil by Ty West was another one right around that same era,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
We Are Still Here is this really great little story about an older couple. They've just experienced a family tragedy. They're moving away from their family home into this, remote town in New England. It's, winter. They're in this farmhouse. And we find out that the house has a sinister history. And even worse, like the entire town has an even more sinister part of everything that goes on in this house. So, really great, slow burn film that earns every scare. They don't do like your traditional jump scares where it's like a cut and something jumps in front of the screen. It's more like really creative camera setups and blocking, and then the camera moves and something's revealed. Like, really creative. A performance from Barbara Crampton that, like, I mean, like I said, I think she's great all the time, but I'd never seen her in something
Yes.
like this where she's a little more understated with her look. She's like playing her age like in a really like appropriate kind of way, and really, really awesome performances through and through. I don't want to give away too much, but if you like haunted house horror movies, you got to check out We Are Still Here
Yeah.
from 2015.
I've never seen it. Have you seen it, Kurt?
Yes, it's a great film. I've got it on Blu-ray somewhere.
Somewhere.
It's a I got so many, too
Yeah.
many.
Yes.
It's I remember it coming out, David, because I honestly I scour the deepest depths of the internet to find my horror films because I'm constantly looking for new things to watch. And yeah, it's one of those movies that didn't get a big opening. No one was talking about it, and it's just a movie I stumbled upon once. And it's a cracking film, like you said, Davey. It's a proper slow burn, and it does pay for its scares.
Mhm.
Barbara Crampton, obviously, like you said, is always nice to see. Obviously, she showed up in Your Next as well. She plays the mother in that, if you've seen that one.
Mhm.
Yeah, cracking actor,
Um,
cracking film.
you were saying about slow burners. Like my daughter, she's 14, and I mean, she loves horror. So I'd be putting a lot of older films on for her. Not too old, like The Ring, Sixth Sense, The Others. The other day I watched What Lies Beneath. Okay, and
Mm.
I did, even though they're all about 20 plus years old. In my mind, they're not that old, but they are quite old, really, now, isn't they? But they're still kind of modern horror, you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how slow they were. Like I put The Ring on the other day, and it's a really slow film, great film. But my daughter said, she goes, "Do you know what? I prefer these slow ones to like The Conjuring and stuff because the
Mm.
jump scares are just, I'm getting so used to them now. Just like, oh, and but
Mhm.
the things, the slow burners, they tend to get under her skin. And I even put Salem's Lot on for another TV series, the old one. That's 3 hours long, and she loved it. I said, "Are you enjoying this? It's very slow for a kid." She goes, "No, I prefer it. I feel creepy all the way through rather than just sometimes,
Yes.
you know." So yeah,
Yeah.
slow burners.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where it's like, if that's what you're watching when you're younger and you sort of get, a little more conditioned to that, and I do think that it's just maybe it's a personality thing too. People want to they want to like be, surrounded by the atmosphere and the feel of the
yeah,
movie. Like, and I realize more and more that like, yeah, I'm that way, definitely. Like, I want to get to know the characters. I think like story and characters are the most important thing. So if you can get me to buy into that, then I'm down for
yeah.
whatever you got.
100%.
Yeah, great pick. I'm gonna catch that. Maybe we'll watch it when I hook up with you next month, Kurt.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So he lives quite far away from me. Well, I say far. It's probably not far when you live in America or Canada, but it's like
It's an hour's drive.
an hour's drive, which is really far if you're Welsh.
An hour, you said?
Yeah.
That's funny
yeah.
because I live in Phoenix, and when I hang out with my buddy, I don't know if you guys know the Horror Show channel. Shout out to Cecil over there. They're like an hour away. They're in the same city, but it's still an hour drive.
Yeah, that's too far. That's like a hotel away for us.
It's
like.
all relative. The town that I grew up in, a 10-minute drive was far. So it's all
well,
relative.
Yeah.
It's funny. I got a friend who moved to Australia. Then another friend moved to Australia, just trying to escape me, probably. And and he said, "Oh, my mate John, he's only down the road. It's only 2.5 hour flight." I'm like, "I live in Wales. Down the road literally means down the road. Yeah, 2.5 hour flight is like out of the question."
Down the road is you
100%.
could throw a rock and hit their house.
Yes. Yeah. What's your last pick, then, Kurt?
Right. I struggled with this one because I don't know if you
It's
can
good.
fully call it a horror movie. No, it's a great film. If you can fully call it a horror movie, it does say it's a horror film on IMDb, and I personally consider it to be a horror film because it's horrific. And I've got Green Room from 2015, directed by Jeremy Saulnier.
Definitely.
Yes, of course. Once they're in there and everything's happening, it turns into a horror movie, and it's got all the horror movie tropes. But I thought it bordered on thriller more, and I wanted to keep it for a thriller video. But if we're talking about underrated films, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one I go back to loads. It's just had a stunning new release from Second Sight. We've got the big 4K box set, and I ate that up. And seeing this movie on 4K was stunning. It stars Anton Yelchin, Imogen Poots, Patrick Stewart as this neo-Nazi cult leader, Darcy, and Joe Cole. Basic premise of the movie: you've got this group of, I would say, a punk rock band, and they're just doing a small circuit around. You'll love this one, Davey. They're doing a small circuit, and they get this gig in the middle of nowhere in the woods for a group of Nazis. While playing in the back room, they discover a murder. I don't want to go too much into detail, but that's the plot of the movie. They discover a murder, and because this has happened, they end up getting stuck in this room because the club that they're in, run by Patrick Stewart and his group of neo-Nazi followers, they do not want these guys to get out of that room, because if they do, they're obviously going to tell the police. So it becomes a movie about survival, and it's a one-location movie. I've mentioned this in the past plenty of times. My favourite movies are one-location movies. The Thing is my favourite movie of all time. And all these movies, because they're in one location, they have to play into these tropes of paranoia and anxiety, because you're stuck in this one location. Who can you trust? And it's got similar things. You can literally compare this movie to The Thing, because who can you trust? You've got these people outside the door that are saying, we promise you, we just want to get you out, we're not going to hurt you. And this film, when it kicks off, all hell breaks loose, and it's got some of the gnarliest ghost scenes you'll ever see. Patrick Stewart is brilliant in there. Now, I was looking forward to this film because I love Jeremy Saulnier from one movie. I seen one of his first movies, Blue Ruin. I think he had done an earlier film, Murder Party, which didn't get any notoriety. But I'd seen Blue Ruin. I loved his style. I loved everything he'd done, his cinematography. And I was looking forward to this film. And when I heard that Patrick Stewart was going to be playing a cult leader, it weren't even the fact that there's no way Pickard can be playing a cult leader. I was genuinely excited. Like, how are they going to play this? How are they going to do this? And the guy that cast him, I think it was Jeremy Saulnier who wanted him, deserves a medal because he knocks this out of the park and he does a great job. And there is so many bits in there where I was like, I never thought I'd be scared of Patrick Stewart, but he is terrifying in there.
Do you reckon they just picked him to be like the Nazi leader because he's bald? Because he's not shaved his head. Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you seen this one, Davey?
You know, I haven't, and it breaks my heart because when this was announced, I was like, I really want to see that movie, and it's a movie that just keeps on slipping through my fingers. I say this all the time, but there are a lot of movies where I'm like, I have no reason for not having seen this movie. I'm a massive punk rock fan. I love Anton Yelchin's work. I think him passing away is one of the great tragedies of that generation of actors.
Yes.
It's a really sad story. He was incredibly talented in everything I saw him in. And yeah, I mean, Patrick Stewart, amazing. I wonder if the reason why they went for him is because, you know, Ben Kingsley had that run like in the 90s where he was like that really intimidating older bald guy. And they're like, well, oh man, Sexy Beast is crazy. Like he's just so intimidating in that movie. And maybe they're like, well, we'll get Patrick Stewart to kind of play that, you know, Kingsley type role here. But yeah, a movie I definitely have to see because I'm right there with you on the one location thing as well. It seems like a cracking film, as you guys say.
Yes, it is. It is a cracking film.
Yeah, I when this came out, I was really excited for it. I don't love it as much as Curtis, but it is a good film, and I have rewatched it about 3 times. There's a couple of moments where it's not one of those films where, you know, you watch a film, you enjoy it, and something is missing, but you can't put your finger on it. And that's one of those films. And that's why I've rewatched it so many times. It's a bit like It Follows. I love It Follows, but it's taken me about three watches to fall in love with it. And there's still something missing.
Well, hurry up and fall in love with Green Room. Come on.
But
it's one of it is genuinely one of my favorite modern day movies, and I would actually put it in my top 10 favorite movies. I love this film. It's fantastic.
Right. Last pick of the night or day. Right. This, I wouldn't say it's controversial. This is a hidden gem, but it has got 4 sequels. Okay. But in the sort of horror sphere, normies are not going to have heard of this. It's Hell House LLC. Have you heard of it, Davey? Have you seen it?
I have, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, right. Okay. So even though there's been multiple sequels and they're all terrible, I discovered it randomly a few years ago, and I'm pretty clued up on horror. So if I have never heard of it, there's a chance it's pretty shit if it's passed me by. And I even recommend it to Curtis, and he hadn't heard of it, and he's even more clued up on like shit films. If he hasn't heard of it and it's shit,
he loves shit.
I love shit, and he's an unashamed shit lover. It's a found footage movie. The basic premise is there's a group of not filmmakers. Sorry, they buy this old hotel that's haunted, and they're going to turn it into this like a museum, like a haunted night
scare house,
a scare house, you know. And it's like they've got actors to play like monsters and all this. And I think they're quite popular in America. We don't have many here, I don't think. But anyway, it's one of those. And it's them filming themselves, doing it up and preparing it for this night, this Halloween night opening or whatever. And it starts off, without spoiling anything, starts off at the end of the movie where all hell is broken loose on this sort of night. And it's on the news that the night and the fire and everything, all horrible things have happened. People died. And then it cuts back into them buying the place, doing it up, filming it and documenting everything because they, you know, it's a big thing. And it's got all these old lifelike dummies in the basement of clowns.
Terrifying.
And I know clowns are kind of overused as horror things with the Terrifier and obviously It. But I'm telling you now, I have never been almost so scared in my life when they go down the basement and there's these dolls and they look aggressive. They're not like happy ones. They're like tough guy clowns, if that makes sense.
Fat heads, like big heads.
And they just, when you look back, they're just turned. And then you're like, my God, his head's moving. Little things they got. But it is terrifying. I told Curtis about it. He watched it. He said the same. My God, that's shitty-fying. And I stuck it on for my daughter. She loved it so much. She said the other day, I wish I'd never seen that film so I could watch it again and experience it again. Yeah. And I tried to watch the sequels. The dog shit. There's an Origins one that came out the other day on Shudder. It's not the worst film in the world, but it's just nothing. But you said you haven't seen it, Davey. You need to watch it. I'm sure it's on Shudder, is it? Or one of the
Shudder, yeah. Do you know my thing is I love my found footage movies. Probably one of my favorite subgenres in horror, and I knew about the film, but I constantly scroll past it because it's like that Blackwell Ghost. There's like 10 of them and they've all got the same poster. I seen Hell House as that type of thing. You go on Shudder and you see like 4 of these movies. They've all got the same covers. And I'd always scroll past it. I never give it any time of
Mm,
day. And you messaged me one day and said, have you seen Hell House LLC? Obviously not. And genuinely, one of the scariest experiences I've had. Watched it on my own in the dark. And it is genuinely a really well-made, creepy, unsettling film. It's definitely in the higher grade of found footage movies.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
You gonna give it a chance, Davey, on your list?
absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny you guys bring it up because a couple weeks ago, it was recommended to me by a Christian over at Planet CHH. I don't know if you guys are familiar with his channel. He's a big physical media and horror guy. I was on a stream with him and he was like, dude, you have to check out that movie. And he did mention as well the newer one. He said he did like the newest one, but he was like everything else in
Yeah.
between. But he's like, that first one is like super creepy. And
Yes.
yeah, found footage is one of those genres that like I've really only seen like a handful. Like I haven't seen many. I haven't dove into the whole genre. Like I've seen 0 Paranormal Activity movies.
Really?
But yeah, I don't know if like that sort of thing like was real, like that particular franchise just didn't seem to really interest me too much, but this sort of thing does. I like the idea
Yeah.
similar to like Blair Witch, where it starts out the original Blair Witch, like you know that it's not a good ending, and then you get to watch how it all gets
Yes.
there, which is kind of like
Yeah.
it sounds like what this one does
Yes.
here.
I'd say the best thing about this film is that it doesn't do anything new. It just does everything right, you know, and that's all you
Mm,
need
Yeah.
sometimes. A bit like I'm guessing that horror film you mentioned there was Still Here,
mm,
and
mm.
it's probably not that original, but it just does everything bang on right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So for homework for me now after this podcast, Peeping Tom. Definitely We're Still Here because I do fancy that. And
Mhm.
what was your first pick now, Kurt?
Waxwork.
Waxwork.
Oh yeah, no, I've
Yeah.
seen that. Yeah, just 2 then. I'm not watching Waxwork again.
You can watch Green Room for a 4th time and figure out what it is.
Yes,
Just
I
fall in
watched.
love with it.
Yes,
That's the assignment.
yes.
You
Uh,
mentioned that though, Jenks, your daughter wanting to rewatch a movie for the first time. I think that is a really cool
yes,
concept for a movie. Have you guys, or for a video, have you guys done something like that where it's like, 5 movies that you wish you
No,
could
that's
watch for the first time again? Like
yeah,
that's
that's
a
a good
that's a
idea
fun
actually.
one for me. Because I
Yeah,
think
but
about that every now and then.
yeah, but it's just so sweet that she said, and this, her favorite film I've shown her is Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods. Yeah.
It's really good.
She loved it. It was right up
Mhm,
her street of bonkers horror, you know.
mhm.
And I love the fact she loves horror. But for her to say, "I wish I'd never seen that film," just so she could watch it again, was just such a sort of profound thing to say, you know.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that with films. I never even thought that. Oh, I wish I'd never seen Evil Dead 2, so I could watch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but then I
Those
wonder,
movies.
watching it now wouldn't be as good because I watched it as a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't find Evil Dead till I was in high school, and I absolutely loved it from the beginning. That would probably be like especially the original Evil Dead. I'd go back and watch
Yeah.
that for
Yeah.
the first time again because
I
that blew my mind.
See, that's the thing. See, I don't know whether my daughter would enjoy Evil Dead 2 or like Return of the Living Dead. I think
Mm,
I kind of know the film she's gonna like.
yeah,
Salem's Lot was a bit of a risk, but I don't know. Evil Dead 2 probably a bit too
too
silly and
silly.
gory for her.
Well,
Yeah, I
then
think
just
so.
show her the 2013 Evil Dead. It's great, right? That's like the perfect for somebody that likes a little bit more of the blood, a little bit more of the
Yes,
tension. You
lot
know,
of blood.
100%. Yeah. If we're going for a serious
Yeah,
movie, we'll get her to watch the
yeah.
2013 Evil Dead.
Right, Davey, it's been awesome having you on, mate. Do you want to give your
Yes.
channel a plug while you're
Yeah,
here?
absolutely. Yeah, you guys can find me all over socials, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. It's just Davey Deathray. So I cover, a lot of horror content. I go live quite a bit. I have a weekly late night talk show that airs on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's US time. So I believe that would be 6 or no, it would be 3 in the morning, your guys' time out there in the UK.
That's all right.
But you can always
Still up?
check the replay. And
Oh, we're still up.
yes, so I do that every week. I just, there was kind of a void over here as far as like, people going live Wednesday nights. I thought it would be fun to shine the light on some content creators and also people that are musicians, writers, directors, filmmakers, all that kind of stuff. And then I've been doing a series with my wife called Movie Date with Davey and Kate.
Yeah, I've watched.
Where we discuss movies, we do watch parties, all that kind of fun stuff. And I'm just sort of popping up all over the place on other people's channels. So, you know, just hit the year mark with the channel, just shy of 800 subs right now. So if you dig this kind of content, like what you get here at the Twisted Locker, give me a shot. Just check out a few vids, say what's up, and I'll see you in the chat.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. If you enjoy horror movies, reviews, everything in between, give us a do you know what? Every time I do one of these things at the end, I cock it up. Hit that subscribe button and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Take care.
Thanks.